What's going on, everyone? This Dr. Gonal here. Now, today, if you saw my schedule for the next couple weeks on the community tab, you may have saw that I was planning to upload a Madden rebuild here, and I recorded like a Packers rebuild last night. We went 8 seasons, and we didn't finish over 501, so it was ridiculous. I figured that wouldn't be a good video, so instead, I figured why not upload the teams I'm considering for my NBA2K20 MyLeague. There are 6 teams, and this video may help you decide. So the first one we have here is not currently in the NBA, or at least not right now. That's the Seattle Supersonics, a team that relocated 10 years ago. They are now the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think doing an expansion team would be a ton of fun, especially with the Sonics. Of course, a few years ago, you may know Arios. He had a Seattle Sonics MyLeague. Maybe this is an official passing of the torch, if you will. Of course, I've really modeled my channel off of his. I've used a bunch of his catchphrases, like going upstairs where grandma hides the cookies was his, not mine. I did think of some of these catchphrases, like you can't spell intercepted without the D. That's mine. But the going upstairs where grandma hides the cookies, he originally thought of it, and then I've just been using it, so that one's not mine. And obviously, I think it would be fun to do an expansion MyLeague. I did one back in 2K17, but none of you probably watched my videos. And they were not very good anyway, so for good reason you probably weren't watching them. And then maybe we can start in the offseason, get a really fun rookie, maybe Zion, Ja Morant, probably not RJ Barrett since we did just have it in the King series, but Zion, Ja, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Darius Garland, bunch of fun rookies we could end up going with. And then obviously the expansion draft as well, we could find some young players who we could build around. Obviously would struggle year one, but I do think doing an expansion team would be pretty fun as we sort of get to start from the ground up. And I think having an expansion team, especially with many uniform options, I think would be really, really fun. As obviously in the gameplay, you see players here like Dennis Schroeder, Taj Gibson. Obviously this is not for roster. We will have an expansion draft in 2K20. This is just what we're looking at right now. Obviously, this is not permanent. Just figured I'd let you guys know this is not the team. Maybe we'll draft 1 or 2 players on the squad. Who knows? So, yeah. On to the next squad, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. A couple years ago, it looked like they had the best future in the league. It looked like they were going to be a dynasty with Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, acquiring Jimmy Butler, and then it's all fallen apart. Karl-Anthony Towns has still been good, but Jimmy Butler wanted out, and all that return turned into was basically Robert Covington and Dario Saric, which turned into Jarrett Culver, which I guess that was a good move getting Culver. But Culver and Robert Covington for an all-star and Jimmy Butler probably does not look good right now. And then Andrew Wiggins, who many people thought would be the next Kobe Bryant, just hasn't lived up to the hype at all. And there have been plenty of trade rumors with him, so we would maybe get to try to develop him in this series. I would certainly try to as a Kansas Jayhawks fan, but if not, obviously with trade rumors with him, what could we get? Probably more in the game than they'll get in real life. And then, as I mentioned earlier, they moved up and got Jarrett Culver, extremely fun young rookie out of Texas Tech. He can shoot the 3-ball. Really good defender, really nice length, and I think a core of him and Karl-Anthony Towns would be nice. And then maybe down the line, if we're not winning, we could always look to trade someone like Karl-Anthony Towns. That may seem unreasonable now, but when he's near the end of his contract, if we're really struggling, we could probably get a king's ransom for him. And this team has other young fun pieces, obviously Wiggins, Jarrett Culver, Robert Covington, Jeff Teague is cool, Josh Okogie is a really fun young player. So there are plenty of guys we can build around on this team, obviously with Towns being the main guy. So I think trying to build this squad up to what we thought they would be pretty fun. And they do have some of the better jerseys and logo in the NBA. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards, another team whose future really seemed good with a young superstar point guard in John Wall and a nice sidekick in Bradley Beal. And boy, has it fallen apart ever since their Game 7 loss in the second round a couple years ago against the Celtics. They paid John Wall a supermax. He's now been injury prone. He won't be playing next year with a torn Achilles, so that might be the worst contract in the NBA. Bradley Beal's name has been thrown around in so many trade rumors, and for the sake of the series, I would hope that we would get John Wall and Bradley Beal, maybe try to revitalize their careers as a Wizard, and maybe making up our own trade for them. I think that would be funner rather than us being handed a trade. For example, I probably would have put OKC on the list had they kept Russell Westbrook, and we could have made our own trade. But since they didn't, the Thunder are not on this list. Spoiler alert. Then outside of Wall and Beal, the Wizards do have some decent pieces. Rui Hachimura, the number 9 overall pick out of Gonzaga, very talented player. He can play the 3 as well as the 4. He's a grinder. He can shoot the 3 ball. I like him defensively. I think he's very underrated on that side of the floor. A lot of people did not like the pick. I didn't think it was a bad pick. Yeah, it was a little bit high with guys like Sekou Doumbia on the board, but I do think Rui Hachimura will be a fun player to have. Thomas Bryant, he was a second-round center out of Wisconsin. I think he was the middle of the second round in 2017. I really liked him out of Wisconsin, and he's proved me right. He's been a really good player for Washington. And then they have some other guys as well who could look to build around. So I think the main talking points of this series would be John Wall and Bradley Beal. What do we do with them? What would be the trade package we get? And sort of like Andrew Wiggins, I assume John Wall is going to have a lot more value in the game rather than real life. So for both of those players, we could probably get a ton. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets. And to put things simply, they are absolutely atrocious. The Hornets suck. Easily the worst roster in the NBA. They just lost Kemba Walker to the Celtics. And you know it's bad when your best player is probably Nick Batum. Their starting lineup is Rozier, Monk, Batum, Marvin Williams, and Cody Zeller. That is flat out awful. Yes, they do have some young, fun pieces. Maybe we can build around Terry Rozier. I thought that was a pretty bad signing. I thought they way overpaid him for a guy who's probably a system player in Boston. But maybe we can build around Malik Monk entering his 3rd year, sharpshooter out of Kentucky. Miles Bridges showed flashes last year. I think he could have a big year this season. And I didn't mention him as a starter. He probably will be a starter. And if we do the Hornets, he'll definitely be starting in my lineup. Very athletic, very explosive player. And then P.J. Washington as well, their lottery pick this year. A player who I thought was really underrated throughout the draft process. Nice defender, nice jump shot. And I don't know why people were thinking guys like Jackson Hayes, Brandon Clark were better. I think P.J. Washington is far better than both of them. And I think a big 3 of Monk, Bridges, and Washington could be fun to build around. Obviously, we're going to have to try to draft players, and those would probably be the focal points of this team because I don't think any of these guys can be the number 1 option. Maybe not even the number 2 option. Maybe Bridges or Washington or Monk can develop into that, but certainly not the number 1 option on a championship team. Not to mention, money-wise, these guys are screwed. I've said it before, I'll say it again. In 5 years, I don't think these guys will be playing in Charlotte. I think they will be moving within the next 5 years just because of debt and stuff. I think the Hornets are really screwed, and we would really have to fix them. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they could be a really fun team. They would have low-key been perfect last year with LeBron James leaving. I think that would have been a great storyline, but I was dead set on doing the Kings, and I don't regret it. The Kings were a ton of fun this year. But the Cavs have some interesting pieces. Kevin Love is another guy, like Bradley Beal, who I would rather have on the team just so we can make our own trade. He's another guy who I think will have more trade value in the game rather than in real life, so I think we could get a decent offer for him. And the Cavs do have some young, fun pieces. Look at their backcourt. Colin Sexton picked 8th overall in 2018. Obviously a channel legend at our 2K18 Hawks MyLeague, so we get to play with him again, which I think would be super fun. Colin Sexton's a guy who I really like in real life, and I think he can be the point guard of our future. And then after 2, Darius Garland, a pick I question just because I view him more as a point guard, but I think his lack of playmaking ability and his excellent scoring, I think he can slide right in at the 2, a little bit undersized, but I think having that dynamic duo in the backfield of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland would be a ton of fun. Plus, they have 2 other first-round rookies, Dylan Windler out of Belmont, nice shooter, can grab boards. And then Kevin Porter Jr., we had him for a little bit in the King series. He's going to be a super fun player to build around. Super athletic. He can jump out of the gym. Solid scorer, solid shooter. Does have some work to do there. And he also does have work to do defensively, but I think he is solid in that area as well. Kevin Porter Jr. was a steal in my opinion, and I think he'd be super fun to build around. So a core of those 4 guys, plus some other solid pieces. Tristan Thompson, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr. This team isn't even that bad, and we can easily get some pieces for those guys. And then the last team, a team that I was on the fence about, but the more I thought about, I figured that they could use my help, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. Not really as much of a rebuild team, but if you think about it, maybe they are headed for a rebuild. Greg Popovich doesn't seem like he's sticking around too much longer, and when you look at their roster, they're headlined by DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. Aldridge is certainly out of his prime, and DeMar DeRozan looks like he's probably going to be ending his prime within the next couple of years, and I think it could make sense to always try to tear it all down and try to rebuild with a new core. Obviously, the Kawhi trade did not get them the value that they would have hoped for. Just tear this team down, rebuild around the young guys, players like DeJounte Murray, who's entering a contract year, phenomenal defensive player, and we would try to build him up offensively. Derek White, grit and grinder, late first-round pick in 2017. He's been a very pleasant surprise. Lonnie Walker was incredible in the Summer League. Luka Samanic and Keldon Johnson were their first-round picks this year. I think both of them would be a ton of fun. So all around, the Spurs don't seem like a team that makes sense, but the more you think about it, I think the Spurs will be really fun. We could probably get something decent for LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan down the line, or if we do well, we can try to build around them. DeMar DeRozan, I don't even think he's 30 yet, so he won't even be that old by the time the series ends. And then LaMarcus Aldridge as well. If he doesn't regress too badly, he's always a guy we could build around if we do well. So bet on the video, make sure to vote, link in the description. And as always, have a good one.
Hey, man!